Hey guys, so today you and I are going to talk about explaining my job. So let's get into it. So the question in question was, Frederick, how would you explain your job as a software engineer to someone who doesn't work as a software engineer? Well, I suppose that I would explain it to them this way, where, I have tried explaining it, and it's actually not that complicated for people to sort of understand on a high level, like what it is that I do. So I usually say, when you use the internet, for example, since I do primarily web, when you go to all those websites that you see, like when you go to Amazon or Facebook or something like that, all the images and like all that data and like all the posts and everything, all that is a computer system that you're interacting with. You have a visual interface that you see on your screen or within your browser, and then you can click on things. And then what happens when you do that is that when you click a button, that sends a message to what we call a server, which is just a computer somewhere on the internet, and it does a bunch of magical business logic and other sorts of things that is sometimes complicated, sometimes it's not, and then usually you get to see some updates, something like you follow that person, so it usually saves something to a database or something like that. And that system, all of the things that makes that work, that is what I do. Like, I make sure that there is, that when you go to Facebook or Google or whatever, you actually see a web page. So you see something that you can interact with, and then when you type in something in the search box or something like that and hit enter, that message, like when that message is sent to that server computer we were talking about, I take care of that, make sure that there is a computer there so that it actually takes the message, does whatever you're supposed to do, like searches through the internet if you're searching Google or something like that, and then you see like the next web page. All that stuff is part of my job. It's what I do. And usually people find that description to be fairly straightforward because, as you can imagine, most people understand that, well, computers have like software and like programs and stuff like that, and if you just tell them that, well, when you click on things and you do things and that does something in the computer, that is what I do. It's a very, like, I can pretty much explain that to a 5-year-old and they will understand that. Well, I hope. I haven't spoken to a lot of 5-year-olds in the last few years, but I hear that they're getting really smart. My friend's 2-year-old, I almost freaked out when I saw him use YouTube like a pro on his tablet, and I was like, oh my god, they're evolving. But for the most part, that description is very straightforward. If I will explain my job to someone who is a bit more technical in my own company, or like, to stakeholders when I meet when I meet other IT people who are not like engineers and so forth, usually they ask me things about, oh, you're a front end, like they sort of know some words, and I say, well, usually these days, like, I've worked both as a front-end developer and as a back-end developer, and done a little bit of ops and things like that. So I've been around a little bit, done multiple things. So I suspect that the best way to describe me is a full-stack developer. And for right now, I work as the tech lead for a team of software developers. It's not my first time being a tech lead, but yeah. So what that entails is actually very simple. Like, my responsibility is to make sure that we have some type of technical roadmap. I do the coding together with the software developers, like my developers. I have a team of, what is it? 5 people? 4 people? Something like that. And so basically my job is to make sure that we have a delivery pipeline so we can ship code, and like we have quality assurance checks and so as I call them, gateways. I make sure that we have like a GitHub, like an account, so that they can actually upload their code. I make sure that they have like documentation and review processes, so they know that, well, if you're pushing code to production or like something like that, there's like a few steps you have to pass before you actually get to do that sort of thing. And then of course I provide coaching to the juniors, and then if I don't do any of that stuff, or I'm not in like a meeting with the product owner or so forth when they talk about like, oh, we want to build these things, and I kind of go, okay, yeah, we're gonna need to be able to do those things and those things, and then I help write stories like, for example, we want to build this new awesome feature, we should I don't know, investigate or build this part of the system in that way. Here are the acceptance criteria for building that thing. And then I tell my team, like, yeah, we need to build these things, it should probably work in that way, we should probably use these sorts of tools and maybe add this and that, and then we have a discussion about it. And then when they feel like they understand, we put that on the backlog, and either they do it, if they usually they have more time to just do coding than I do these days, which is a little bit sad for me, but hey, that's comes with the title. But if I do have some time away from all this other stuff and doing code reviews and so forth, I do the coding as well, where like I just pick up the card and I do implement the story. That's also a pretty good explanation of what I do. And now it's coming up for me as well, where they want to push that one further, because it's been going well for me in the last few. It hasn't been all that long actually, so I think now it's time for they want me to become some type of architect. I've explained, and that's a different sort of title, where, well, let's be honest here, like I've done that sort of work as well, not in an official capacity, but I've also explained sort of that is not necessarily what I want to do at the highest level, because an enterprise architect, the traditional ones are, yeah, I have nothing to say about that. I think that we're sort of moving away from that sort of work, and moving, I hope at the very least, and people are starting to realize that the sweet spot for a technical expert is not enterprise architect. It is what I call a true senior software developer, and that is basically someone who has done the work of software developers for long enough and has the width, like the broad understanding of how to do all the things that are necessary to deliver software, not just a front-end developer, not just a back-end developer, not just a full-stack developer, someone who knows everything from full-stack operations, how to do like security, system design, etc., etc. It's someone who is a battle-tested software developer with years of experience and has the social skills to understand product vision and how to talk to stakeholders and sort of like and do like management type of things as well. This is like a holistic sort of person who sort of understands the whole ecosystem of what needs to happen in order to deliver software effectively, which is not what the traditional enterprise architect is about. But the thing that entails is mostly at the higher level, where you basically decide on the technical roadmap for entire teams. How do you set standards? How do you design different APIs? How should different systems interact with each other? What type of practices should be standard in all teams? How do we get metrics and the overall health of the system, and so forth and so forth. So that's what's coming up for me. I'll make another video someday when I can describe how do you describe that role. Well, I sort of did, but I hope you understand. So what I want you to take away from this is that the way that I describe the work of a software engineer to someone who's never, knows nothing about software is very simple. All the websites that you go to, the colors and the buttons and the pictures and all that stuff, I am the person who shows that to you when you go to your website in the browser. And then there's usually a server, which is just a fancy word for a computer somewhere on the internet that does all the magic that makes things happen, places your orders and sends out emails to you, and you buy something and so forth. All those things, that's what I do. To someone who's a little bit more advanced, I usually say that I'm a full stack software developer. Today I work as a team lead, where basically that is just one level above being a software developer. So I'm responsible for preparing work stories, coaching my team, setting up all the standard practices of the team, and talking to them about like how do we improve our test coverage, how do we ensure that things don't break in production, etc., etc. And then you act as a rubber duck and a supporting type of person to product owners and people who want to plan out work, so you're involved in those sorts of meetings as well. And when you're not doing that, you're usually just coding like everybody else in the team. And architect is one level above that. Usually, traditionally, it's almost no code at all. It's practically only planning. And in many cases for multiple teams at the same time. And yeah, that's pretty much it. Have a great day.